Hello everyone, welcome back to my discussion on visual analytics using Tableau. So in our journey of learning Tableau, the topics that I'm going to cover today is parameters and calculated columns. Now before I proceed further, what are parameters? And how parameters help us to make our report more and more dynamic and interactive. Parameters are nothing but a type of filters that we use in our report, which actually adds interactivity and flexibility to a report. To be very precise, parameters are a virtual filters, or you can say defined filters, which is used as a kind of a filter which you can edit the members of the parameter, and you can define the items of the parameters. You can also display parameter control in the view for users and the parameter in calculations and calculated field that are used in the view. Now these definitions are a bit descriptive in nature, so the best way to learn parameters is with a hands-on example. So to start with, let me first fire up my Tableau application and let's see how we can use with some hands-on example of parameters. Now let me fire up my Tableau. So this is my Tableau application, and what we can do, let us connect to a data set and see how we can use the concept of parameters in order to define some hands-on example. So what I can do, I can click on this particular connect and let me select the Excel file. So for this particular example, let me select the Superstore USA data. And what I can do, I can drag the first table, the order table over here. Let's check the data with all the column names if there is an alias over here. So I've discussed about what are alias, groupings and hierarchies in my past discussions. You can just refer to that particular video for any reference. These are very important concepts about alias, grouping and hierarchies. So this actually helps you to make your data more and more structured and helps to interact, creates the report in a more planned way. I've also discussed about the filters. I've also discussed about sets. So today I'm going to talk about parameters and calculated columns. Now, as I said in my previous session in the earlier today in Power BI, so calculated columns are the kind of formulas and functions that we use in Tableau. Before that, let me show you what are parameters, which are defined filters or where we can edit the member of the parameters. Now, I will also talk about the rules for creating parameters which you can follow. So there's a golden rule that you can follow for creating parameters. Thus, there are some certain steps to create parameter. I will also talk about, so those steps will always help you to create parameters, and you will never forget as the best practices to create parameters for your reports. Now I have checked this particular report. The types of connection I'm using over here is a live connection. Let me go back to my worksheet as parameters. Now what I can do, let me select let me make a new a normal report. So the report will show me the sales and the profit in terms of the product subcategory. So let us make this thing a bit easy to understand, because parameter is a very complicated topic, but it is a very, very powerful concept in Tableau. So let's start with the very scratch and then we can understand the advanced implementation of parameters. The first thing that I want to do, let me create a report using the product subcategory, where I want to do analysis to understand the sales and the profit in terms of product subcategory. So I'll select the product subcategory. I'll hold down my control key. We'll select the sales, go to show me, and let me create a bar graph. Now let me quickly format it, sort it with a descending order, and let me label it. So things looks good to me. Till now everything is fine. So what I can do, the next thing that I want to do, I want to highlight the profit in terms of product subcategory, where I want to have a different colors for each of the bar graph. Now what I have to do, I can select the profit measure and I can release my mouse over the color mark, and these all things are quite easy. And I'm sure if you're following my video on the iNeuron YouTube channel, these things have already been discussed in detail in the in my past sessions on Tableau. Now this is a normal report that I have created. Now what if I want to create a filter? So in terms of product category, now what I can do, I'll select this product category and I will click on show filter, and there will be a filter pen over here. And the same thing I can do for product subcategory. I can just click on this downward arrow, show filter, and I can arrange these filter pens over here. These things are quite normal. If I click on the reading view, so I've got this particular, the end user will able to see this particular screen. Now there are certain questions that comes into my mind. First, what if the end user wants to sort this particular report in terms of sales and profit? What if he wants to know how this particular report interacts in terms of sales and profit if he sorts this particular report? Now in order to sort this particular report, if you can focus on this particular x-axis with the sales figures are there is a small symbol of a sorting icon. You can use this particular icon to sort the report in terms of sales, in terms of profit, and in turn descending order. Now I want, instead of searching for this tiny icon over this report, I want the end user to have a proper section, a proper option where he has a drop down option, and the end user can select the items, the filter items in terms of sales and profit from that particular drop down, which actually is not, which is difficult, or which is not possible in terms of filter. You can see I have applied a filter over here. Now what if I want this particular product category and the product subcategory in a drop down menu, and I can just select from a single menu. Instead of having a different option for filters, I want to select this menu's product category or product subcategory from a single menu. Similarly, I want the end user to sort this particular report in terms of by the help of a parameter where they will get a interaction, a user interactivity in terms of selecting the sales and profit. Now this is where the parameter concept comes into picture. So let me remove these filters and let me create a parameter over here where I will give the end user to select the sales and profit from a drop down list. Now there are three options by which we can create a parameter. First, if you can go and click on any one of the measures, you can see there is an option where you can create a parameter from over here. You can see if you go to create, there's a parameter option over here. This is the first option we have. The second option we have, you can go to the analysis tab and there is a parameter option over here, so which is grayed out as of now. The third option that we have, and the most commonly used option for creating a parameter, is just beside the dimension category, there is a drop down list over here. If you click on this particular list, you can see there's an option over here called create parameter. Now I'll be using this particular option to create the parameter. So the requirement is that I have created this particular report and I want the end user to sort this report in terms of sales and profit. So let us create a parameter. Now the golden rule for creating a parameter is, there are 3 steps that I have learned in my course of experience. The first is create a parameter. Second, assign a action to that particular parameter. Tell that parameter what actually you have to do, whether you have to sort the, whether you have to predict something, whether you have to forecast something. So you have to define an action for the parameter in the second step. And the third step is to integrate that particular action with your report. I repeat, the first is create your parameter. Second, assign an action to the parameter. And third, integrate that action that you have created for that parameter with the report. So let us follow these steps and create a first parameter. I'll click on this particular option over here and I click on create parameter, and let me name this parameter as choose option. Now I want to give the end user an option to sort the report in terms of profit, which is there in the measure, and the sales, which is there in the measure. So these are all measure items. So let me select the data type as string, because we will be using this profit and sales heading, which are string, which are text in nature. And I'll be selecting the allowable values as list. Over here I'll be mentioning the first choose option as sales and the second choose option as a profit. So I've defined the first parameter. The parameter name is choose option. Data type I have selected as string, as I'm working with profit and sales. Those are all the headings of this particular measures are text in nature. The list is sales and profit. Now I have other options where I can add field from the available options over here, like city, shipping mode, the dimension values, which I can see over here. Now that I've created the parameter, let me click on OK. Now the moment I click on OK, I can see there's a different section created just below the measures. If you remember, in my last session I was working with sets, so similar kind of category was created in this particular section, the data sections in the left hand side. And you can see there's a parameter created over here. Now what we can do, we can click on this parameter and we can choose this particular option to show the parameter control. So I click on this and you can see this parameter control has been over here. Now what I can do, I can select and bring it over here. So in this particular drop down, I have selected sales and profit measures. But you can see if I'm selecting the values, the report is not changing because I have yet to assign it an action, which is a part of which is the second part of creating a parameter. So the first step, parameter is created. Second step is assigning an action to this parameter. And what action we need to provide? We need to provide an action where it can sort this particular report. So action type is sorting. Now, in order to assign an action to the parameter, we use a different concept, that is calculated columns or calculated field. So there's an option just above the create parameter is a create calculated field, which is our next topic that I'm going to discuss in detail. Now calculated field is just nothing but a place where you use certain functions to create certain actions or to create certain measures which will help you to find out those informations which are not available in your data. As of now, let us see what this calculated field help us, how this calculated field help us to create an action for the parameters. So I've selected the calculated field, and now I'll name this field as sort option. And let me write a small formula, a function basically. The function is, if the user selects the parameter option, what is the parameter over here? Choose option, right? So I will write choose option parameter, and after selecting this parameter, if the user selects sales from this particular parameter list, then it will be sorted in terms of sales. And if the user uses profit from the parameter list, then it will be sorted in terms of profit. And then we can end this particular piece of function. And let me select the then as from here. So what I have written a very simple function. So what I have created a case function. I have used a case function under which I have defined the two type of conditions. If any one of the condition is satisfied, then this parameter will be called, which will sort this particular report in terms of sales and profit. Now we have completed our second step, where I have actually assigned an action to this parameter, where you can see the parameter name and the type of action that he has to perform. And I'll click on apply, and you can see the moment I click on apply, a new measure has been created, sort option, and I click on OK to close this particular pop-up window. So first, created the parameter. Second, I have assigned an action, and the third one is I will integrate this action with this report. Now in order to accomplish the third steps, we have to click on this particular dimension pill in the row shelf, and I have to select the sort option. In the sort option, I have to select the field option from here. Why field option? Because I'm going to use this particular field. The field is measure in nature. I will be using this particular field, and it will sort this particular report in descending order, and the field name is sort option. So I will search for this particular option, and here we go. I've got the sort option. And you can see the moment I select the sort option, the report has been sorted. Now I've closed this particular window, and if I select profit, this report is getting sorted in terms of profit. If I select sales, this report is getting sorted in terms of sales. Now if I see in the reading view, you can see the end user have got an option. This is the option that I have created using the parameter option. Now from this drop down, if I select profit, it's profit. If it is select sales, the report will be sorted in terms of sales. So this is it is a one type of parameter. So this is what we do in parameter basically. So we create, we assign, we integrate. The next parameter type I'm going to talk about is what if parameter. Now what if analysis is a very common analysis in an Excel file or an Excel report. But the question is how we can create a what if parameter in Tableau. For that, let me take a new worksheet and let me rename this particular worksheet as what if parameter. For this, what I can do, I'll be using a date component, and I'll be using a sales component, and let me create a line chart this time. So what I have done, so this particular chart is also, you are familiar with this particular type of visual. So where you're using a date component, and as we all know, whenever you use a date dimension, it has a default hierarchy associated with the date. How can I know that? If you can see, there's a plus sign associated with the date dimension, and if I click on this plus sign, I can see there's a hierarchy associated with it, and this is the default feature of a date what we use in Tableau, where we can edit this particular hierarchy. We can just use the proper hierarchy features in order to showcase in our report. Now this date has two types of granularity. First, if you can click on this particular drop down, you can see two sections which shows the same number of features. Now this is the yearly features, and this is a, so if you can see, if this is the year selected, where we can see the sales in terms of individual years. Now if I select this particular year, you will see that this particular year consists 2010 consists of the whole year of sales. If I say quarter, so for 2010 the 4 quarters will be shown over here. Now if I select this quarter, this will show the sum total of all the 4 quarters in the year from 2010 to 2013. So Q1 for 2010, 11, 12 and 13 is stored in this quarter 1. But if I select the second quarter, so it will show the individual quarter for each of the year. So there are two types of granularity that are there over here. So discrete and the other one is continuous. Now let us select the month granularity from here. And we have the month-wise data for each year in terms of sales. Now what I want, the scenario is, I want to predict the sales in terms of percentage. And to predict the sales in terms of the growth rate, basically in terms of percentage, like 5%, 10%, so 5% growth for each increment. So how will be the sales affected for each of the month? I want to predict that if my sales increases for 5% or if my sales increases to 10%. So we will be doing a what if analysis, and we'll do that with the help of a parameter. So again, taking the golden rule, we'll create a parameter, we'll be assigning an action to the parameter, and we'll be integrating that action with the report. Let's start. So we'll click on this particular option, we'll click on create parameters, and I'll name this particular parameter as growth rate. I'll keep it as float, the data type, but the allowable values will let me select as range. So the minimum range I'll select at 0, and the maximum range is 100, which I can also showcase as 1. And I want a 5% growth rate at each increment. So the increment size or the increment value should be 5%. So 5% will be 0.05. So 0, 100 and the increment is 0.05, which is equivalent to 5%. Now I click OK, and I've created a second parameter, that is growth rate. Now let me create a action for this parameter. And the action will be a small formula. And I'll again go over here, select the create calculated field option, and let me name this particular formula sales growth or percentage growth. And the formula will be, I'll calculate the sum of sales and I will calculate the percentage growth in terms of the parameters, that is growth rate. And I will close it. Now this formula is a very simple formula. For example, if the sales is rupees 10, now keep 10 over here, and if you calculate and if the growth rate is 0.5, that is 5%, then the sales will be 10.5. If you can solve this particular formula keeping sales as rupees 10, then you will get a 10.5, and if your growth rate is 5%. What I have done, in order to create an action for this, assign an action for this parameter, I have used this parameter name within this formula, growth rate. I'll apply it, and you can see I have got a measure over here. Now I'll click on OK, and what I can do, I have completed the second step. The third step is to integrate this parameter with this report. So I'll drag this particular parameter and I will release my mouse over here. And you can see the moment I bought this particular parameter over here, this particular measure over here, you can see there is a two kinds of chart that has been created. A dual chart has been created. Now the first one is this, and this one is the second one. So let me change the color to orange, and let me change the color of the first one to green. And now we can combine these two charts. In the meanwhile, what I can do, I can click on this particular parameter name and I can show this parameter over here. And let me convert this growth rate into percentage. So I can format this particular parameter. I can click on this particular option. I can go to default properties and I can click on number format and change it to percentage. And you can see it's changed into percentage, which is 0 as of now. Now what I can do, coming back to this particular report, I have bought this particular action measure that I have created. Now let me combine this particular report, and we all know how we can combine this report with the help of a dual axis, which I have discussed in detail in my previous sessions. You can refer those videos in order to understand the dual axis concept. Now I click on dual axis and this particular report has been combined into a single report. Now as the rule of dual axis, what we can do, we can combine the axis also. So you can synchronize the axis. You can right click on this particular axis name and you can select the synchronize axis. Now both the axes are on the same parameters, so we can remove one of the axes and we have got a single chart. Now coming to the main part, I want to focus the sales in terms of growth rate, where the growth rate is 5% for every step, every increment, which I have defined over here in this particular parameter. Now let me go to the reading view and see what the end user will see if he increase this growth rate from 0 to 5. You can see this chart has started changing. The blue one is the growth and the orange one is the actual sales that we have done. Now again I increase it to 10%. You can see for 10% in November 2012 the growth will be 572110 and the actual sale is 520. So the actual sale is 520 and the growth rate is 5720 at 10% growth rate. Now what if I increase it to 15%? So you can see at every 5% growth how the sales is changing. So this is how we can use the what if parameter and the normal parameter in a report in the different two types of scenario that I have discussed. Now this was a parameter. I will request all my learners to just explore the parameter concept in Tableau. It's a very handy option that we have, and we can just create assign an action for the parameter, and we can just make our report more and more interactive in that case. Now the next topic that I'm going to talk about is a very important topic, that is calculated field. Now under calculated field I'll be talking about the different categories of calculated field that we can work with, starting from numerical, then string, then I will talk about the date calculations, I will talk about logical calculations, and then we'll go for the aggregate calculations. Now what are calculated field? In simple English, calculated fields are nothing but working with formulas and functions in Tableau to find out those informations which are not available in your data. Now if I go by the definition, there are a lot of things that we can discuss. So let me first show you the definition over here. Calculations are used to find certain informations which are not available in your data. Scenarios like profit and loss, or customer age, etc. Now, as a result of this calculated field, either we can get a dimension member or we can get a major member. When I say dimension and major, there are two sections in our Tableau, that is dimension and measures. So as a calculated field, I will show you how we can create a measure. So you have a idea of till now that how we can create a new measure with this particular actions. You can see that I have created growth rate, or you can see the sort option. So these are the new measures which are not available directly from the data source, but we have created using a calculated field. Similarly, we can create dimension measures by using calculated field. So let me take a fresh worksheet and let me take a new data set this time. Click on this particular and I'll go for this data nation data set. Now this particular data contains the details in terms of the population, birth, death rate, incomes and elections kind of options that we have in the data set. Now let us use the concept of calculated field and let us calculate some information. Let us get some information for this particular data set that which is not available over here. Now I'll go directly to the worksheet and we have the dimensions and measures all arranged for this particular data set. You can see there are two data sets. Earlier I was using this particular Superstore USA and now I'm using the different data over here called nation data, which have the dimensions in terms of capital, city name and measures like birth, death rate, population. Now the first calculated field I am going to work is a numerical calculation. So I'll take a new worksheet and I have to rename this particular worksheet as a numerical calculation. And what I want, I have a data. From this particular data, I want to I have a measure over here called death rate. Now if I go to the data source, the death rate contains the percentage of death rate for each of the state. So these are decimal values which are in percentage basically. So what I want, the requirement is, I want to calculate the number of deaths against each of the cities or in terms of state. So let us calculate the numerical calculations. I repeat, the requirement is to calculate the number of death and we have the death rate with us. So what I can do, I can use the concept of calculated field. Now let us see in detail how we can work with the calculated field. So we know we can create a calculated field by using this particular option. We click on this and there will be a pop-up window coming up where you can see the data for which I am working, and there is a place where we can define the formula or the function name. Now if I click on this particular arrow, there is a list of function that is available in Tableau, which we can use to create formulas, or which you can use to create certain formula which will help us to get certain information. Now if I click on this particular all option, you can see there is a category of functions available. Like if you click on number, these are the functions which are available in number, like power, round, sine, sin, square. Now similarly I have categories like string, where you can get formulas, like function like character, char, find. So we'll be using these function names over here. Now the best part is whatever function name is over here, available over here, only those we can use in Tableau. So we can easily use these particular options from here. We can select these options and we can use them in our report. So let us start. So the requirement is I want to calculate the number of deaths. So let me name this particular formula as number of death. And let me write a small formula over here. Formula will be I have the death rate over here, so I can open a bracket and I will write the death rate. So the best part is there are two ways of writing. There are two ways of using the measures or dimensions in your formula. Either you can type the name and you can see their name will appear over here, or what you can do, you can delete it, you can select the death rate from here and you can drag the value over here. And I will divide that death rate by 100 and I'll multiply it to the population current. So I have a population current measure over here. So I can type it population current or over here and you can see the name has appeared. Now the moment I bring this particular formula over here, I'm seeing a small message in the below that a calculation is valid. Now this is a kind of an indication that is given that yes, the formula that you have created is correct in terms of syntax, it's correct in terms of logic. The logic is valid, the syntax is also right. Now what if I use a wrong formula? You can see there is an error, the calculation contains error. If you click on this arrow and you'll get the error. This is a syntax error, column name missing parenthesis. So I can give the bracket over here and this is valid. Now I can click OK. And you can see as a result, as an outcome of this particular formula, I have got a new major member that has been added to this section. Now let us calculate the number of deaths in terms of city and in terms of state, and let us find which city or which state has the highest number of deaths. So I'll select the city name, I'll select the number of deaths, I'll go to show me, and click on over here and I can sort this in descending order, and you can see Mumbai is leading in terms of having the highest number of death. And we are using this particular measure as a normal measure that we do for the other measures which are available in this segment. There is no such special steps or special rules to use this kind of measures that we have created, the user defined measures. Now same thing, if I want to check in terms of cities or in terms of state, I can bring the state over here and you can sort the state over here. Over here also we can see that Maharashtra is leading in terms of number of deaths. Now I can also use a different option to see this report. For example, if I use this report as a text value, I can also check this particular report in terms of text. I can use a text table where I can replace the state and I can bring the city name. And I can see the same values in terms of our numbers over here. Now what if I want to see this particular report only with the city name, not with the codes that were associated with the city? I repeat, I want to see this particular report in terms of the city name, not with the help of the codes. I don't want to see the code over here with the cities. So let's do the next set of calculated field, that is string calculation. What I want to have a column which will only contain the city name, not the code. So let's write a small formula for that. So I'll use the same steps. I'll go over here. I'll open this calculated field and I'll name this particular name as short city. And I'll use a formula called left. And you can see the moment I select the formula from here, this particular formula is highlighted from this list available over here. So left returns the specific number of characters from the start of the given string. And there's an example below. So over here the string will be city name. And the number of characters which I want, let me take it 3. and let me click on OK. And you can see this time this calculated field has returned me a dimension. I can also edit a dimension, a calculated dimension or a calculated measure. I can click on edit, and you can see that I have missed one letter over here, that is short city, and I again click on OK. Now if I bring this particular dimension over my report, I will have the short city name associated with each of the number of deaths. Now what if, so I can see for Agra we have, because we have used a formula which will actually extract the first three characters from the dimension name, city name, from the very left. So the left formula has extracted the first three characters for Agra, the first three characters for Ahmedabad, the first three characters for Allahabad, and so on. So we have got a city name without the code. Now let's make this particular formula more and more dynamic. What if I want to see the whole city name? So I want to have the full city name for not AGR or AAHM, the short name. How can I achieve this kind of scenario? For this again we'll be using the calculated field option. So I'll go over here and let me create one more formula. Now that particular formula, what that particular formula will perform? That particular formula will calculate the length of every string. Length of every city name. So let me find the length. So I'll name this as length city name. And for this I'll be using a formula called find. Now let us see what does find do. Find calculates the position of the substring within a string, or 0 if the substring isn't found. In simple English, it's find the length of a string. Now let me define the arguments over here. So some of the arguments, it takes 3 arguments, out of which some arguments are optional and some are compulsory. So first you have to define the string. Over here the string is city name. So we'll type the city name over here. And what I want this particular function to find the length of every city name till it encounters this particular bracket. So the moment it encounters this particular bracket, square bracket or delimiters, the formula will terminate and it will store the length till that particular bracket. So I will define that particular bracket within double quotes. Now for example, if the find formula, the city name, let's replace the city name with Agra. Now what will this formula do? This formula will come and calculate the length of Agra till that particular bracket. So it will return the length as 5 because it will also include that bracket also in the calculation. Because we have told that particular formula to calculate the length till you encounter this particular bracket. So it will also include the bracket position also into the formula. So what we can do, we can simply minus that particular bracket, whatever calculation it holds. So for Agra, if it is 5 till bracket -1 will give you the actual length of the string. And what we can do, we can click OK. And now you can see this time it has returned as a major. So I can bring this particular option over here and I can remove this city name from here and remove the short city name over here, and you can see for Agra it is 4, for Ahmedabad it's 9, so the length of the every string has been returned. But still our purpose is not served. Our purpose is to get the full clean city name. So what we can do, we can go to this particular formula that we have created last time, the short city. You can click on edit and you can replace this 3 with the length city name measure. And now if I click OK, and if I bring the sort city name over here, I have got the whole city name without any codes or without any short name. What I have done, I have just made this formula a bit dynamic with a little changes, where in place of the numerical value I am replaced with the formula that is calculating the length of each of the string. For Agra it is 4, so from the left it will go and extract the 4 and it will return the 4. For Ahmedabad it is 9, so from the left it will extract the 9 characters, as a result of which the whole name has been appeared over here. It's so simple, right? And now I can remove this city name and I have the clean city name with us. Now this is a type of a string calculation that we can do with the help of a calculated field. The next topic that I'm going to talk about is a date calculation. Now how to work with date calculation? Let us work on that particular thing. So I'll take a new worksheet and let me name it as a date calculation. And what I can do, I can just use a scenario where I want to calculate the number of years. So I have a city name over here, and also I have a last election date that has been associated with each of the city. Now I want to find the number of years since the last election date. So how many years have passed since the last election date? So generally in our country we have 5 years of terms for each of the government, whether it's central or state government, 5 years of terms, and we have to conduct elections after every 5 years. Now there can be some obvious reasons, some economic crisis and all, where the election gets delayed. It may get delayed. You don't know about the political situations of any country. It may change overnight. Sometimes within 1 or 2 years the government changes. Now the purpose over here is, the scenario is, I want to calculate the number of years that has been passed since the last election for each of the cities. For this we'll be using calculations which will involve certain date component. So let us write that particular calculations. So I'll go over here and I'll click on create calculated field, and let me name it as year since last election. And I'll use a function called date difference. Now what is date difference? A very simple function. What it will do, it will find the difference from the last election and minus that particular difference from the current year. So it's a very simple formula, but it's a very powerful formula that function that I'm going to use, and that the function name is date difference. So obviously as the name suggests, it will find the difference in date by comparing the starting date and the last date and the ending date. So the start date over here will be the date column, that is the last election date dimension that we have used in the report, and it will minus the end date by considering the current year that is there in our system. So, and that difference will calculate it in terms of years. So first we need to define the type of calculation, that is year. And now I'll define the start date, which is the last election date. And then we'll define the end date, which is the current year. So in order to know the current year, we'll be using a formula or a function called today. So what does today does? Today returns the current date. Over here it will return the year, because over here we have passed the argument as year. And now we'll click on OK, and you can see we have got a measure over here. Now if I drag this particular measure over this particular report, we got the number of years that has been passed since the last election. For Agra, it has been already 4 years. For some of the state, it might be 5 years. In Gwalior, it's due. For Coimbatore, Dhanbad, it's already the election is due. So there are a lot of states like Aurangabad, Bareilly, Kolkata, Kota. So these are the cities where the election is due. And if I want to know in terms of state, so in Andhra, in some parts of the Andhra, it's already due. It's still good. In Delhi, it's due. In Gujarat, some cities, it's due. So we can do this kind of date calculations using the date calculation part. Now, in my last discussion, where I was talking about the string calculation, where we have done a bit of string calculations using some formulas. Now this can also be achieved with another concept without writing a single formula, by using some of the available options in Tableau. Now there may be some people who actually avoids using formula. They get sometimes it becomes very complicated to remember the formula name or the function name which you have to use. So I have seen in my past experience that a lot of learners actually try to avoid using formulas. They feel that using a formula, remembering a formula, is quite a complicated thing, and it might they don't feel confident about using formulas. However, formula is a very important aspect of reporting. If you know how to interact in terms of formulas with your report, you will always be having an added advantage in terms of understanding the data, or in terms of structuring the data. It helps you to structure the data in a better way. Now, what if you want to avoid using formula? In my previous example, I used certain formula to clean the city name, where I separated I used a formula called left and find to remove the codes associated with each of the city name. Now what if I want to do the same thing without writing a single formula? So I come to the city name, I click on this, go to create. Just below create there is a transform option. I go to this transform option. There are two options over here, split and custom split. I'll select the custom split, and let me first define the separator. Over here the separator is a bracket, so let me remove these options and let me bring the city name over here. So over here the separator is a square bracket. So I'll go over here, click on this particular arrow, go to transform, select custom split, and let me define the separator over here. And the whole split operation will be performed on all the values of this particular text. And let me click on OK. Now the moment I click on OK, as a result of this particular click, I have got two dimensions. Now let us see what these dimensions are all about. If I select this particular city name split 1, I have got a clean city name without writing a single line of formula or function. And if I bring the second city name, it contains only the codes. Now let us see when I use this transform option and the custom split, what kind of formula Tableau has created for us. So if I select this particular city name split 1, and if I click on this downward arrow, and if I click on edit, this is the formula that Tableau has written for us. Now Tableau, what it has used? It has used a trim function and it has used a split function. So there are two formulas that we have. They have used. Tableau has used in a single formula. Now what if I want to further split this particular option, the split 2, that is this code. I want to further split and I want to remove this bracket with associated with this code. So again I go over here, click on this arrow, click on transform, custom split, and this time let me define the bracket as a closing bracket, click on OK, and now I have got one more column, that is city name split 2 split 1. So I have used this split 2 name, so I've got a new dimension this time, and this is also a clean code. So I can remove this particular dimension, I can delete it. Okay, I can't delete it because it's associated with this particular split. So you can see without writing a single code line of formula, we can use the point and click option available in Tableau. But in most of the cases, it's better you go for writing the formulas because it always gives an edge over having a good reporting, dynamic report, interactive report, structuring the data in a better way. So this is how we can use certain options in Tableau for point and click. And we have also seen how we can create a date calculation. The next example that I'm going to talk about is working with groups. Now if you remember, when I was discussing the group features in my last session, I told you that we can create groups in dimension. Now when you create a group in dimension, it actually reduces the members of the dimension. What if I want to create a group in measure? For example, let me take a new sheet and let me name it as major groups. Now if you remember in my previous discussions, I told that it's not possible, we cannot create groups in measures. For example, if I take this death rate and if I want to create a measure, if I want to create a group out of this particular measure, so we have this other death rate that is available over here. Now if I create a group within this particular measure by using the group option that is over here, then what will happen? We can easily select a group of measure and we can create a group. We can click on this particular group and you can create a group. Next time what will happen, if a new value comes, like for example 3.61, that particular value will not come under this group because this is a static group. And that's why being measure is a continuous value, we cannot create static groups within this measure, because this measure values tends to get changed it can change in the future. For any new measure value that comes into this particular measure value, that particular measure will be standing out from that particular group that I've created. So how can we create a group within a measure? We can use the concept of calculated field again. How? Let us see. The scenario is I want to create a group in the death rate where any death rate which is less than 10 is low, any death rate which is greater than 10 and less than 15 is mid, and apart from any other is high. So we'll create a group using the death rate measure. For that, I'll go over here and I'll click on create calculated field, and let me name this as death rate group. And let me write a condition. So I'll be using a conditional function over here like if, because we are working on multiple conditions. The first condition is if less than 10, then mid. If more than equal to 10 and less than equal to 15, then it is mid, and less than 10 it's low. More than 10 is equal to mid, and anything above 15 is high. So we'll use a if function. And what does if does? It is a conditional function which creates condition, and if those conditions are satisfied, it will give you the desired output. So I'll use a if function and let me define the condition. So if the death rate is less than equal to 10, then it is low. Else, if death rate is more than equal to 10, or more than 10, sorry, and if the death rate is less than equal to 15, then it's mid, or else it is high. Else it is high. So you have created a group, and we'll end this particular formula. So every formula which starts should be end. So we should tell Tableau that this formula starts from this particular point, and we have used these functions, and now it will end over here. What we have done, we have created a group using this particular measure value. Earlier it was not possible to do that, but with the help of a calculated field, we are able to create a group in this particular measure. Now what I can do, let me click on OK, and we can use this particular measure. Now let us see if I bring the city name over here, and if I bring the death rate group over here, and if I bring the death rate over here, so you can see any death rate which is less than equal to 10 is low. Anything which is greater than 10 and less than equal to 15 is mid, and anything which is more than 15 is high. Now we can modify this formula in a better way. You can make this formula more and more smart. Instead of writing so much of formula, what we can do, we can make this particular formula more and more dynamic. How? We can remove this particular feature, and you can reduce this particular formula. So less formula, less lines in formula, less words in formula means the formula will execute faster. So you can use this, and you can write this particular formula in this way also. So this is one of the smartest way, or the best practices that we can follow while writing a formula in Tableau. Now what you can see, for each of the state I have the lows and high death rate groups. So this is how we can use the death rate options. These are the calculations that we can do. These are the logical calculations that we can perform by using calculated field. So the purpose of this example was to show you how we can use certain logical operators and certain conditional functions to create calculated field, and we can create groups within measures. Now what if I replace this city with state? So we can see that in city we were getting some individual results in terms of low, high and mid, but in state the results are not accurate, because for some of the state we are getting two kinds of groups, whereas the requirement is we need something like Assam or Bihar where we are getting a single category group. To make this information more and more accurate in terms of states, so we can Jharkhand, Karnataka, we can see multiple categories. This is not an accurate report. We want a death category in terms of state where we want a single group assigned to each of the state like Assam and Bihar. We cannot have a multiple category of death. Andhra either should have a low, mid or high. We cannot have high or low for Andhra, right? This is not a correct report that we have got. So in order to make this report more and more accurate in terms of state, what we can do, we can use the next segment of calculated field, that is aggregation. Now what is aggregation? Aggregation is a concept where we use some average, mean, max kind of function to aggregate the value. So aggregation means combining multiple values to get a single value, like combining multiple numbers into a single, adding them in and getting a single number as a result of that addition. So we'll be using the concept of aggregation over here, and that's very simple. What do we need to do? We need to create a copy of this particular dimension. We can duplicate a dimension. We can click on edit and let me name this particular as death rate aggregation. And what you can do, let me use an aggregate formula over here called average, and let me find the average of each of the death rate. Now what I have done, I have just used an aggregate formula. So what are the aggregate formula? We can have sum, average, mean, max, this kind of formula. So what I have, I've used one of the formulas and I have calculated the average death rate. And if I click on OK, and this time you can see I've got a measure. Now if I remove this dr group from here and I bring the dr aggregate over here, and you can bring the death rate over here, now you can see for each of the state I have got a single category of groups. So this is how we can use some aggregate functions in calculated field to get some accurate information in terms of certain measures that you're using as a part of the group. So this was all I wanted to discuss in today's agenda about using parameters and calculated field. However, I will request you guys to please explore this particular area of calculated field. I'll be coming up with some more examples in my upcoming discussions in terms of calculated fields like LODs and types of LODs and all. So those are also very interesting topic. So tomorrow's session will be all about LODs and far more explanation in terms of calculated field. So this was all for today, guys. So just explore this area and try to get more information about calculated field, as it is a very important part of Tableau. So that was all for today's session, guys. Let's meet tomorrow at 4:30 for Power BI session, where I'll be discussing some more new topics in terms of Power BI. So I'm signing off for today.